to the sidelines. Has a man wide open. It's tipped. It's picked off. MJ Devonshire. Got space. He's going to take it to the end zone. Pittsburgh takes the lead.
He loves those moments. It reminds me of last year in the Garden against St. John's. And guys just stepped up. Blake hits a what the hell three. You know, we're like, what are you doing? And he's done that all year.
Clunker out to Bizzario. It's over. The Pitt Panthers have upset Wisconsin. Anybody if he hits his field goal. Up and got it. Sauls does it again.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Simple 5 Podcast. I'm your host, Zack Kaminsky, and this week I'm joined by nobody. No one. It's just me. Gotcha. It's a solo show. Both Ian and Mason are a little bit busy this week, so just me talking over the Syracuse game that happened last week on Saturday night, previewing the NC State game, also talking about the rest of college football in both of these weeks. Another banger week in college football. It's been a really, really good season, this 2025 season. Just a lot of upsets, a lot of teams going down in the top 10. It feels probably outside of like Ohio State and Indiana that this is the most open college football year's ever been. And football, even if they do seem inevitable, right? They're still prone to upsets. But it's getting a little bit ahead of myself. I do want to talk about some other Pitt sports news before going into the football side of things. First I want to touch on basketball. They had a scrimmage exhibition against Providence, the third or fourth team in the Big East polls this season. They won it. I'll be honest with you, I don't really care, just because I'm at the point with this basketball team where it doesn't matter to me until the games count. I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, but it was either last season or 2 seasons ago where we beat like Cincinnati in a secret scrimmage, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're supposed to be a really good Big 12 team," and then Pitt ends up being bad. I'm really not. This is probably bad of me to admit, but I'm really not really following the team until like they actually start playing for games that count and seeing how they look, in a non-exhibition setting. I know that Deshaun Jackson is down, but I didn't watch and really keep up with this, but I wanted to mention it. I know we have a lot of Hoops fans listening to the show, but for me, I'm not going to think about them until they start playing real games on hardwood that count for wins and losses. Sorry, I had to take a sip of water there. Probably caught that on the mic. Also want to talk about volleyball. Volleyball has been back to form here in the swing of ACC play. I know they lost, I think not last weekend, but 2 weekends ago to Miami in 5 sets, but they did bounce back. They've won 3 straight here against FSU, Notre Dame, and in a top 10 rivalry matchup against Louisville. I mean, what more is there really to say about Olivia Babcock other than she's the best player in America for the second year in a row, and she just went absolutely nuclear. This was a match where they're down 2-1 in the third set, and they're on the ropes, and Babcock just takes over. I mean, she set a school record 41 kills, beating her previous record of, I think, 33, which happened in the Final Four last year. And she's also hitting 423, so that's a 40-40 game is crazy, right? And it was her who won that match. It's in the game leaders there, Olivia Babcock was obviously the leader in kills on the team, but she had 41. The next highest was Blair Bayless with 11. So she just took over that game and ran with it. She also led the team in aces and blocks. I think that's the kind of game that, they're the number 3 seed currently in the NCAA rankings. They had to have that match to keep one of the 1 seeds in the tournament, and they went and won it. Pitt Louisville in volleyball is one of the best college rivalries out there. A lot of people would say, it's just volleyball, but those who know us, we know, and it's fucking real. I mean, that gym was absolutely fucking jumping. It was loud as hell in there. Credit to the fans there, but what a really gutsy win on the road. I know they had I'm forgetting the player's name, but someone got injured, I think, against Florida State. But hey, man, the new team is gelling. I always say that I'm going to do a volleyball episode, and then I forget to because I get busy at my day job. But I do want to shout out Olivia Babcock and the girls volleyball team for coming back and not losing 3-1, coming back and winning that in 5. Also want to shout out, I guess, friend of the pod, Ari Meyer. He is at the sports desk at the Pitt student paper, the Pitt News. Dropped a nuclear level take today on the timeline. He did say that if Olivia Babcock retired today, she would be the GOAT Pitt athlete. And I just wanted to shout that out because it's kind of sitting on a take that, or it's close to a take that I've been sitting on there, where I don't know if I would go to, hey, Olivia Babcock is the GOAT Pitt athlete if she retired today. But I think about the hardware that she has already, and my personal take on this is I think when she graduates and leaves Pitt, she will end up the GOAT Pitt athlete, right? I think as it stands right now, the names I've been seeing thrown around are basically Tony Dorsett and Aaron Donald, in terms of what her competition would be. And I'll say that I think Aaron Donald I rule out personally because he had a fantastic senior season, won a ton of awards, but most of his success and awards have come as a professional, which is awesome. I think he's one of the best professional athletes Pitt's ever produced. But in terms of college greatest of all time, I don't think his awards stack up to what both Olivia Babcock and Tony Dorsett have done. Great player there. Not hating on Aaron Donald. Number 3, clearly, with a bullet. With Dorsett, I think the argument here is, and I think this is really the only player with an argument right now, live 2.5 years into her college career, is that Dorsett has the equivalent. He has the Heisman. Liv's won the National Player of the Year award. She's on the watch list again, and he has a title. I think that if rings matter, and that's pretty much the separator here. I do think though that with Liv, I mean, she has been a first-team All-American, first-team ACC, I think first-team All-ACC twice, All-American twice. She has the volleyball equivalent of a Heisman. She's going to be a favorite to win it again this year. She was the Rookie of the Year her freshman year. In terms of just straight hardware, I think that when you stack it all up, Liv is probably going to be the most decorated Pitt athlete of all time, and I think that makes her case, title or not. She's, brought 2 Final Four bannerships back to school. That's why you fly them. They're hard to get. Has not made it to the title in a 64-team single elimination tourney. So it's a little bit harder for me to value a title, especially with Pitt being an upstart program, but I don't know. That's just my take. Sound off if you think differently. Let's get to the football, right? Pittsburgh wins one of the sloppiest, worst games you've ever seen, and still do so by 3 scores. They beat Syracuse 30-13 on Saturday night. I mean, listen, it's a win. You're never going to say, I'm unhappy about my team winning. I'm certainly going to say I'm unhappy about the process it took them to win this game. I thought they were standout players, standout performances within this game, but on overall, especially from an offensive standpoint, this was, let's just call it a spade a spade. This is a stinker. Syracuse was just simply outclassed in this game. Their quarterbacks threw 3 picks against Pitt, one of which was on the first pass of the game. To, I believe it was Taman Lynham, who had his first pick of the year. I know that it was Lynham, Baines Marquez, I think, had one. I believe the other one was Cruz Brookins. I mean, listen, it's always fun to have picks. The defense carried the game here. The offense was a slop fest. The offensive line really did not hold up. Now, I do want to say the offensive line was bad in this game. Kendall Stanley has to get better with the penalties. I think he had 4 or 5 himself. That was, the immediate thing that sticks out. Playing behind a line that was getting a lot of pressure. Mason was doing what I would say is a little too much in the pocket. He's doing what I would call a bad Caleb Williams impression, and you never want to do a Caleb Williams impression, which is just running around the pocket back there and trying to run around for as long as possible, find an open guy, right? Caleb Williams did that because he was an S-tier athlete, and I love Mason. Running touchdown was awesome. He's not a Caleb Williams level athlete, and he was getting 6 in his face every time, so it really didn't work out. He got sacked 7 times. I think Nerdy said 3 of them were just squarely on him, and a lot of it was just him running around back there for too long. Bright spot on the line, though, do you want to say Ryan Coretta has been very good. in terms of like replacement play for Keith Cavea at left guard. Other than that, I mean, it was just stop and start all night. Julius Goff has a touchdown to kind of seal it late. Mason has the opening score, but the passing game was pretty bad. Mason had his first real fucking bozo game, right? He's 13-24 for $140 and a pick, no touchdowns through the air. Has it on the ground, and the running game, obviously the line was playing poorly all night. But I think, the run game, this is a game where a lot of players were out, and we'll talk about that, or I'll talk about that, not we. I'm used to having my friends here, right? Des Reed was clearly being I think he was just straight up on a snap count in this game. He only gets 6 carries for 38 yards. Still, that's good for 6 yards an attempt. But they clearly saw Syracuse as an inferior team, and they were like, okay, it's just going to be Ja'Kirian Turner. He's just going to carry the load here, and we're just going to get out of here with a win, which is what they did, And I do want to say, listen, it's a win. I would have liked to see this offense do a lot better against a bad Syracuse defense, especially through the air. I mean, they were just, the pressure that Syracuse got, I guess, shout out, congrats to them, right? They were just in Mason's head all night, and it's, it's at the point now where they've teams have 3 games of film on Mason, and this is where the coaching of Cade Bell is going to matter a lot, right? This is, how do you look at Mason's tendencies and errors and try and fix them? Through, how do you tell them, stop hanging back in the pocket and, don't try and spin this way or get rid of the ball earlier or make this read, right? Or how do you adapt your game plan, right? They were bringing a lot of pressure in this game, and they just did not really have an answer for when they brought pressure. I mean, there were some nice throws in this game. It just was not consistent enough. They were usually just mucking it up in the middle somehow. Really weird that they just... They decided not to spy Mason. They just said, "Oh, fuck it, we'll send 6 at him and hope he gets tackled." And he did. Let's be fair to Syracuse. They tackled him a lot. I don't know. That's about it on offense. It was just a very ho-hum day. They moved the ball. I complained about Mason throwing only for 140 yards, and they had a total of 115 on the ground. That is that's more in both categories than Syracuse had. Talking about the defense here, they held Syracuse to 136 yards passing, had the 3 picks, and also held them to 76 yards rushing. Yassine Willis, former Pitt commit who flipped late to Syracuse, if you'll remember, had 13 carries for 16 yards. If you're doing that in your head, that is good for 1.2 yards per carry. And that is really impressive for a defense that already came into this game thin, right? They're starting Isaiah Neal, who's out of position at D end, who I think is really coming along at D end for a guy who was playing D tackle for 2 years prior to this. Obviously, Jimmy Scott, great, D tackle's great, but we're still pretty thin at D end. We did get Joey Zielinski back, which was really big, I think, for the rotation there. I want to say he might have had a sack in this game. He did not. I lied to myself. I apologize. He had a tackle for loss. So he had a good game back. Nick James, Isaiah Neal both had tackles for loss. Isaiah Neal and Nick James also both had sacks in this game. But yeah, I mean, they did have a really, really good game on defense, right? Especially because, like everyone knows, the defensive line is so depleted. A couple more injuries, right? And they're calling me up, and they're like, "Hey, get off the mic. You're gonna be fucking going against Notre Dame's tackles." They're gonna send me 6 yards under the fucking dirt on a counter, and it'll be really funny. I'll get turned into a GIF and shit. But I mean, they were really challenged here. Not only a D line, I think, because the D line is kind of gelling around Jimmy Scott and the D tackles, and Isaiah Neal has been coming on strong as a converted D end. But the linebacker depth in this game was tested, man. Rasheem Biles was sort of a late surprise injury. He did not play in this game. Kyle Lewis in this game definitely got concussed. No questions about it. He came up fucking. He did not know where he was. He has a brain injury. So we saw a lot of former walk-on Nick Loppe, number 31, and 4-star registered freshman Cam Lindsey. And Lindsey leads the team in this game in tackles, both total and solo. 6 solo tackles, 7 total. Has 1.5 tackles for loss. Also leads the game there. I think, man, I know that the linebacker room is really thin at this point, as it stands right now. Marcelin, Bonsu, Kyle Lewis, and Rasheem Biles are all out as far as we know, right? We have no idea on what the update is on Biles or Lewis. He came in and played like a starter. He was a leader on this defense when they were like, all right, it's your time. And also, Nick Loppe coming in cold. He's a long-time Pitt program guy. Those guys would come in and be like, yep, we're ready to play. We're ready to go. And really, really impressed by them. Also, almost forgot about it. Shout out to Kenny Johnson. That punt return touchdown was awesome. That little shake and shimmy to get just open enough to break that one loose. That was, it was only 10-7 at that point. Then we go up 17-7 into half. That was a huge tide changer. It kept the vibes up. Going into half, only up 10-7 on this team would have been really rough vibes. But that punt return touchdown kind of saved everything. That was really cool. Shout out to him. And also, Stephen Thompson proved wrong because the starters returning kicks and punts have paid off for Pitt this year. Well, that's it on that game. It was a nasty, no good game. It was a super stupid, poopy brain game from Mason Heinschel and the entire offense, and yet they still won by 3 scores. So it's, I don't know. I guess you can take what you can get. Don't love the process, but I love the extra win in the column. Pitt is now 5-2 and 3-1 in the ACC. Around the college football world this weekend, there were some scores I do want to get to before talking NC State. I'll just kind of run through them pretty quick here. Well, not that quick because I kind of forgot about this. Louisville beats Miami 24-21 on Friday night. Oh my God, Carson Beck. That was one of the funniest interceptions I have ever seen in my life. That 4th pick to end the game. The broadcast talking him up. He's like, he's a veteran quarterback. He knows he's got a great winning record. He knows how to win late in these games. And then, Mario Cristobal, end of game management meets Carson Beck being a fucking dumbass. Throws a pick, ends the game for Miami. Miami's now no longer unbeaten. There are no more unbeatens in the ACC. And it really has thrown a wrench into the title race here because there's a lot of teams with 0 or 1 loss that don't play each other. I think we'll get into this more next week as Ian and Mason are back. But I've started to game out sort of who you got to root for each week, and I gotta write this down because I want to freelance it. I want to do it right. But we're kind of getting informed of what occurrences we need that we would like to happen outside of Pitt, winning every week, obviously. Matt Rule fails the Penn State audition by losing at Minnesota 24-6. That was pretty funny. UNC loses at Cal 21-18 on a fumble 1 yard away from the end zone. That is awesome. I hate UNC. Cal was kind of on. Shout out to Cal fans. Also want to touch on this. Boston College is maybe the worst team. I think probably the worst team in the ACC. It's a shame they don't play UNC this year because they lost to Connecticut 38-23. You cannot be doing that. I don't think Bill O'Brien is long for that job. Also in the ACC, Georgia Tech outlasts Duke 27-18. Duke shot themselves in the foot early in this game, had 2 deep red zone possessions, and they had a fumble and a botched field goal, left 10 points on the board, and they lost by 9. So that'll do it. Georgia Tech stays undefeated now in the pole position of the ACC. I think that Georgia Tech is a team that they got a little bit of 2022 TCU, I think it was, where they just keep winning games on just magically pull out of their ass at the last minute. This was close the whole game, and Georgia Tech pulls away in the 4th. I am impressed with Georgia Tech on winning this, but I'm not coming away from them as they are going to go 12-0 impressed. Also want to shout out myself because I called that Vanderbilt would upset LSU at home 31-24. By the way, I'm doing cartoons now for my friends at Media Midfield, and I did one for this game. If you want to check it out, go to MediaMidfield.com. Diego Pavia is awesome. He's the quirked up white boy of the century. He's so much fun to just watch play. He's a fantastic college player. Moving to the afternoon, Ole Miss loses at Georgia 35-43. It's what happens. Lane Kiffin does not beat teams better than him. Ole Miss doesn't have a defense. Lane Kiffin doesn't have a defense. It was what we should have expected. Clemson continues its fall, now 2-3 in the ACC, losing, I think, 3 home games in a season for the first time in over 2 decades to SMU, 35-24. That was in a box. He's dead. It's always a good day. I always like to laugh at Clemson. Shout out to Sam, who's my Clemson friend. He's going through it right now. Virginia escaped Washington State. I won't lie. I won't lie. I didn't watch a second of that game. Penn State loses to Iowa, 25-24. Bowl Penn State is not looking like a lock here. And then in the Holy War, BYU outlasts Utah 24-21. That was a nasty physical game. There were like 5 or 6 plays that swung it, and I think Utah lost on all of those hinge plays. And then one last point and laugh, Florida State loses at Stanford 20-13 to cap off Saturday night. Mike Norvell hasn't won an ACC game in 2 years, and I am so mad I forgot to mention this last week, but Pitt beats him on Mike Norvell's birthday, and I think he turned like 45. The last time he won an ACC game, he was 43. So that's pretty bad for old Mike and the Noles there. Moving into this upcoming Saturday against NC State. NC State's coming into town, sitting at 4-3 with a 1-2 conference record. This is the challenge in this run of games. I think Syracuse and Stanford are 2 games that are teams that are clearly at a talent disadvantage to Pitt. It's just how it is, right? NC State is not exactly hurting for good players. And I'm looking here at Game on Paper, which is what I use to help me inform me of what I can expect in a game, right? And you look at their skill talent. Like NC State is kind of a half team. Their quarterback CJ Bailey is really, really good. He throws the ball a lot. He's almost at 2,000 passing yards already through 7 games. Hollywood Smothers is a fantastic running back. He's up at almost 750 yards through 7 games. Has 5 scores on the ground. They've got a very good offense. They in terms of like success rate, right? They've got a 45% success rate on offense, which is good for number 50 in the country. They're really good. They're really good with the pass, and number 30 in terms of passing success rate. Not as successful on the ground, but Hollywood Smothers is still an extremely talented back. He is really, really good there. They have long third downs, but they're pretty good at converting them. Now Pitt does have a strong defense. I think it's going to be a big test. I would like to see them get after CJ Bailey. He can run. He's had some exciting games, right? That game against UVA where they have this absolute shootout. I think it was like 38-35. He can throw it. He can throw it accurately, throw it on the move. He is a player that you can that can hurt you. That is all I can really say about them. This is a really good offense, and it's another test for a thin defense, especially if Lewis and Biles are out for another week. We don't know anything about that yet, but that's going to be a question for me. I think the D-line is starting to gel with getting Zelensky back. Hopefully we can get Spires back soon. But this is a really big test for the defense because this is the best offense that they'll have seen since the Louisville game, and with a better quarterback in my eyes as well. In terms of Pitt offense, looking at the NC State defense, they're sort of a middle of the road unit. They're pretty good on early downs. They're not great on third downs. They give up a lot of success. Teams are having basically almost a little bit over 45% success rate on third down against them, so they don't really get off the field that well. They're not very good against the pass. They're decent against the rush. We need to see Mason have a bounce back game. We need to have him, playing at home in front of the homecoming crowd and cut down on the mental mistakes. I'm interested to see what the rushing attack looks like. I think they were maybe holding Dez back last week to use him in, this game where he's much more needed than he was against Syracuse. And then really the biggest question for me is how does this line hold up, right? Their best pass rusher, I just had this up and I apologize. Their pass rusher is Trevally Price. He got 2.5 sacks on the season. They just need to be able to hold up against pass rush or find answers that can neutralize a pass rush. I know that Pitt didn't utilize the screen game a lot in the Syracuse game. I don't really know why, because that's kind of, your basic answer to getting blitzes to back off you. But let's see how the passing game looks after a clunky week. Let's see who's going to be running the ball. And really the big storyline for Pitt in this game is who's playing linebacker. I think that the D-backs are really settled. We have Cruz Brookins back. He played in the Syracuse game. Sean Lee, Kavir Baines-Marquez is playing out of his mind. He's an awesome player. Gurrier's getting some playing time. Chad Harrison, both battling linebacker backs. They've got the DB set now. It's very funny, Pitt comes into the year and linebackers, their strong suit, and all of a sudden they're down to one of their starters is healthy at this point. I mean, I do trust Cam Lindsey. He's a fantastic player. I trust Nick Loppe. He's a longtime Pitt veteran. But I don't even know who's going to be on the depth chart behind those guys. Let's see if they've released something to that. No, I don't want the Steelers depth chart. That is not exactly what I want. This is awesome podcasting, guys. How you guys been? Doing all right? I'm fine. Long day. An eternal curse upon Stephen Thompson, who did not post the depth chart when he usually does. That's shame on you. Anyway, I don't really know who's gonna play linebacker if anyone else goes down. So gonna need some health in that room. Would love to see Biles back. Would love to see Lewis be able to play, because this is a game where I think we're gonna need both of them, especially against this high-powered offense. Other than that, man, I mean, this is a game you need to have. Won 3 games in a row. I think fans are getting a little bit over their heels, saying the G word about certain games later in the year. Guys, we got to lock in. We got to consider that Pitt could shit their pants against NC State and ruin everything, especially because we're so thin on defense. And the offense looked a little bit clunky against Syracuse, which and that happened before, only last year when we had a bunch of picks and one on defense. Just putting that out there. I think this is probably going to be a close game. I think this is a 6.5 point line. Shout out to my friend Ryan Donnelly, B1G Ryan, who does sort of a tracking of all the major computer models, right? So he averages all the spreads from those together, and I'm pulling the number up now. They've got it at Pitt as a 9.6 point home favorite against NC State. Don't know how much I trust that. Not at all, but I guess I'm on a scale of 1 to 10 worried. This is a 5. This is a 5. I think that they have the offense to fuck around with us, and I'm, I have the memory of a goldfish. The last thing I saw was our offense looking absolutely brutal, so I have no confidence in it, but K. Bell can prove me wrong, and Mason Heinschel, he bounced back in the game against Florida State. I think they kind of just didn't really push him to against Syracuse because they were going to win. Hopefully he has a good game here because they're going to need it, and hopefully it's a good homecoming win for Pitt. Let's talk about the Week 9 slate here, and then I'll get out because I've been rambling for 28 minutes now, and that's a long time to solo podcast. The Week 9 slate sucks. There's not a lot on. Cal plays at Virginia Tech. That's not really that. Even like the G5 games. I mean, North Texas and Boise are fun to watch, but they're playing Charlotte and Nevada, who are both 1-6. That's just not a very fun. I mean, you'll see some points scored by North Texas and Boise, but other than that, the games are not anything to write home about. Saturday, you've got UCLA at Indiana. UCLA is the fun story. Tim Skipper and Jerry Neuheisel and Nico Iamaleava. Indiana's going to roll here. Fernando Mendoza is a future New York Jet. Can't wait to see how we fuck that one up. Syracuse, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech keeps playing with their food. Could happen. Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Whichever team loses this game is being written out. They're no longer in the Mind Palace. Ole Miss still doesn't have a defense. They have an awesome offense. Oklahoma has a bad offense and an awesome defense. Basically, we get to see who has a bigger brain fart in this game, Lane Kiffin or Brent Venables. And you put a gun to my head, and I don't know if I could predict who would do that. I guess Lane probably. Oklahoma's a good defense. I'd like to get one of these SEC teams out of here. Don't have to think about them for the playoff because they're not actually that good. Also, G5 shout out, South Florida at Memphis. Both teams are 6-1. This is a G5 playoff decider game. USF is a 4.5 point favorite on the road. Memphis coming off an upset loss to UAB last week. This one might get main screen attention for me because this is good on good. I think that the SEC game might be a little bit of slop, and this is exciting offense against exciting offense, right? Also, Northwestern and Nebraska are both 5-2, and they're playing each other. That's interesting, I suppose. Don't really see that a lot. Those teams are not usually 5-2. It'd be really funny if Matt Rule keeps fucking up the Penn State audition. That would tickle my fancy, I think. 3:30. Not going to touch Alabama, South Carolina, but Missouri Vanderbilt. That is a banger. That is number 15 Missouri at number 10 Vanderbilt. That is, you don't see number 10 Vanderbilt a lot. Diego Pavia is a ton of fun. Bo Pribula is pretty good for Mizzou. Didn't have a great showing against Auburn, but I think they have a pretty good defense. I'll keep rolling with the doors. Give me Vandy to keep rolling towards the playoff here. Let's see, a bunch of slop. You'll be watching Pitt anyway, because that's our slot. But Vandy's got a second screen attention here. I'm gonna be real with you guys. The night slate sucks. It's really bad. The only good game on is A&M versus LSU, and LSU sucks. They don't have a real offense. They only score more than 20 points by accident. And then Michigan State is too bad, below average to bad teams playing in a rivalry game. It's going to get chippy. They're going to hate each other, but they're not good teams. So I'm going to plug 8 o'clock on ESPNU, the Dakota marker of the rivalry between undefeated North Dakota State and undefeated South Dakota State. That's the game. Get on ESPNU. Make your friends watch some FCS football. This is real fucking ball. I cannot recommend it enough. It's a fun game every year. It's played outside this year in South Dakota in Brookings. That's my bad hand up. That's my honestly could be the game of the week for me. Other than that, yeah. Thanks for tuning into a solo show. It's been a while since I've done one of these. If you like the show, follow us on Twitter at Simple5Pod. If you like the show also, give us a rating on your podcast app of choice. Follow us and tell a friend, coworker, your therapist, whatever you feel like. And with that, all three of us will be back next week. Hail to Pitt.